Hi, today we will explain the plot of the movie called Boyka Undisputed, which was released in 2016. Let's get straight to the story. The movie tells the story of an MMA fighter named Yuri Boyka, who lives in Kiev, Ukraine. He is the best fighter in Europe. One night, Boyka fights an illegal match held in an underground arena. As the crowd cheered, he didn't let his opponent get a single punch in. During a very short one-sided fight, he kicked his opponent in the air and knocked him out. To make a long story short, in a very strict prison in Russia, prisoners were seen participating in fights for the entertainment of the guards and wardens. Then, shortly after, came the deadliest prisoner of all time named Koshmar. The prisoner was so aggressive that the guards had to chain his limbs and cover his mouth to ensure he wouldn't hurt anyone outside the ring. Koshmar's opponent was half his size, so he could barely land a single punch on him. Koshmar went on the attack and slaughtered his opponent until he was badly injured. The fight would stop when his opponent's face was deformed and covered in blood. Koshmar was known to kill everyone he fought, and he showed no mercy to them. Koshmar looks more like a monster than a human. Unlike Koshmar, Boyka is a kind-hearted man outside the ring. Boyka did not have a good life, as he lived in prison for several years and was a fugitive in Russia. However, he was able to put his past aside and try to become a better person. He even helped a church in Kiev and was always doing charity work. One day, a priest told him that Boyka should reconsider choosing another profession. The priest had always been supportive of Boyka's spirit, and his words surprised Boyka. He replied that his talent was a gift from God, and he did not want to stop using it. He wanted to fight as a professional and no longer be in an illegal environment. In the afternoon, Boyka was visited by his manager, Kirill. Kirill revealed that Boyka could finally legally compete in legitimate MMA matches. A European fighting tournament was taking place in Budapest, allowing him to take part in the competition if he managed to win the qualifying bouts. Long story short, the day of the qualifying bouts came. As this was one of the most important matches of his life, Boyka was ready to give it his all. His opponent in this match was a Russian man named Victor. The match began. Boyka attacked with the first kick effectively. In the first few minutes, he showed off his defensive skills, deflecting every attack thrown at him. As Victor looked more and more frustrated, it made it easier for Boyka to strike. Meanwhile, during the match, the judges on the sidelines were impressed. It wasn't long before Boyka threw a strike that made it clear he deserved to win. After taking the shot, Victor went down and Boyka emerged victorious. After the victory, the organizers invited Boyka to Budapest to fight in a league that would open up many opportunities for him. Kirill gave Boyka some money and told him to train hard because the next match was in 2 weeks. While leaving, Boyka sees Victor in a critical condition. Boyka remembers the advice of the priest and prays for Victor's speedy recovery. The next morning, Boyka meets Kirill and asks about Victor's condition. Boyka was told that Victor had passed away last night at the hospital, which came as a shock to Boyka. There was no one to blame for Victor's death, as they had signed the contract before the match began. However, Boyka knew in his heart that he was the cause of Victor's death. When asked about Victor's family, Kirill gave Boyka a bag, in which he found a letter from Victor's wife and a photo of them together. As he read the letter, Boyka could feel the pain Victor's wife felt upon learning of her husband's death. Immediately, Boyka decides to apologize to Victor's wife and make sure that she doesn't face any problems in her life. Boyka knew that his crime would not be easy to forgive, but even so, he did not want to run away from the path of redemption. Boyka tells Kirill about his desire to go to Russia and meet Victor's wife. However, Kirill is very much against the idea. That's because Boyka is still a criminal in Russia and would be imprisoned if discovered by the authorities. Boyka would have to produce a fake passport, which is a huge risk, as he is on the verge of becoming a legitimate MMA fighter. Boyka understands the consequences, but he is adamant about his decision. On the other hand, Victor's wife Alma was seen at her husband's funeral. After her husband's death, Alma lives alone and has no one to turn to. In addition, Alma and Victor are indebted to a criminal boss named Zurab. The man comes to Victor's funeral and suggests Alma become his mistress in order to pay off their debts. Alma is uncomfortable with the man's presence, but she is careful not to anger him. Alma replies that she prefers to work hard and will pay her debts in installments. Alma owns and lives in a community center. She and Victor built the center with money borrowed from Zurab. It became a home for orphans and people in need. On the other hand, upon arriving in Russia, Boyka went to see Alma, but he saw her being taken away in a black car by a group of men. It turned out that Alma was working as a waitress in an underground fight club owned by Zurab. One day, Boyka went to the club and found Alma there. When he tried to talk to Alma, Zurab's subordinate suddenly stopped him and escorted him out. Disapproving, Boyka beat up Zurab's men while waiting for Alma to finish her work. However, then Zurab appeared and chased Boyka away while warning him not to bother Alma again. Since Zurab brought many of his men, Boyka was forced to leave. Meanwhile, Zurab asked one of his men to look after Boyka.
Stay away from commercial.
The next day, Boyka returns to see Alma at the community center and tells her the reason that her husband died was due to an incident caused by him. Boyka also made an offer to help pay off her husband's debt. However, Alma looked very disappointed and rejected Boyka's offer. After that, Alma told Boyka to leave. On the other hand, Zurab looked visibly upset because his underground fighting business was dragging due to the lack of reliable fighters. He intends to find a great fighter to compete in his club. Since Boyka wants to help Alma pay off all her debts, he then deals with Zurab by becoming a fighter in his club in exchange for Alma's freedom. Zurab agreed and put forward the condition that Boyka must win 3 fights and follow all the rules. It turned out that Zurab already knew who Yuri Boyka was. Long story short, Kirill contacted Boyka and advised him to return to Ukraine as soon as possible. Boyka asked for another week, however, as he had important business to attend to. As he was about to leave, Boyka was suddenly approached by Alma. She asked him to leave Russia, as she didn't need his help. However, Boyka said that everything he did was not to help Alma, but to save himself, who wanted to make amends for his past mistakes. So, Boyka doesn't care if Alma doesn't need his help. Arriving at the training center, Boyka could not train seriously because there were other fighters who disturbed him. Long story short, Boyka's first fight begins. This time he will fight a fighter named Boris, who he can beat easily. On his way out of the ring, Boyka was approached by someone named Igor, who tried to warn him very arrogantly. In the locker room, Boyka was approached by Alma, who gave him a drink. Alma knew Boyka was having trouble finding a place to train, so she invited Boyka to train in the training room at the community center, where her late husband used to work. Boyka continued practicing there in the following days, accompanied by the children who were enthusiastic to watch. The next day, at Boyka's training ground, Alma approached Boyka, who was practicing, after which she helped Boyka to apply ointment to relieve the pain in Boyka's back. Later, Boyka asked Alma why she didn't just leave town, to which Alma replied that the community center was her and her husband's dream. She also couldn't leave the children living there, as they could become gangsters or get involved in drugs and possibly commit other crimes. On the other hand, Zurab was seen bribing Koichov, a high-ranking police officer, to bring Koshmar to his club, no matter what, because Koshmar is a very brutal fighter and cannot be stopped. Zurab thought that Koshmar was a great fighter and could give him a lot of advantages, and he was sure that Boyka would not be able to beat him. After that, Zurab went to Alma and found out that she had helped Boyka by providing him with a place to train. Later, Zurab told Alma that Boyka killed her husband in a fight in Kyiv, but Alma refused to believe him. Irritated, Zurab pushed Alma and threatened to kill Boyka. Shortly afterward, Boyka gets a call from Kirill saying that the bus will pick him up at 9 p.m. However, there was a final match that night, and he had to ensure Alma's freedom before returning to Ukraine. When he arrived at the hotel, Boyka saw Alma waiting for him there. She then asked Boyka to tell her the chronology of the night her husband died. At first, Boyka was reluctant to tell her because he was afraid of hurting Alma's heart, but then he realized that Alma had the right to know the truth. After learning what really happened, Alma felt disappointed in Boyka and cried as she walked away. In short, Boyka's final battle was about to begin. In this final battle, he would fight Igor, whose skills were no match for his arrogant attitude. Later, Boyka managed to defeat Igor, but, unfortunately, he had to miss the bus that Kirill told him about. When Boyka was about to leave, Zurab stopped him and asked Boyka to fight one more time against Koshmar. Boyka agreed for Alma's sake. At the start of the match, Boyka could not hurt Koshmar because Koshmar had a big and strong body. In fact, Koshmar easily attacked Boyka until he was badly injured. In the second round, Boyka started to get an opening, and as a result, his attacks were able to hit Koshmar. In the fierce battle, Boyka managed to break one of Koshmar's arms and one of Koshmar's legs, so he was able to kick the big man out of the ring and knock him unconscious. Everyone cheered Boyka's victory. Since all of his top fighters had been defeated, an angry Zurab took Alma hostage and ordered his men to kill Boyka. Boyka, who was lying helplessly after being beaten by Zurab's men, saw Alma, who was crying in fear of being taken away by Zurab. Boyka got up and exerted all his remaining strength to fight Zurab's men. Boyka was at his lowest when he saw Alma being pulled out by Zurab. Just as he was about to finish Zurab off, Boyka was shot, but the pain was masked by his rage. Zurab was strangled to death by Boyka. Later, Alma tried to help Boyka, but he stopped her and asked if she would forgive him. Soon, the police arrived and arrested Boyka. Before he was pulled away, he again approached Alma and asked if Alma would forgive him. However, she did not answer his question, and Boyka was put back in a Russian prison. 1 month later, Alma came to visit Boyka, who was in prison. She told him that she had forgiven him. Boyka was relieved for the first time in months, even though his plans to become a professional fighter had fallen through. In short, Boyka was seen fighting in the prison cage, and he continues to hold the undisputed title. The movie then ends.